I was born in Sawam, in Edem region.
Wow.
And grew up in Accra, schooled in Accra. And I've been in Accra since.
What did you do for fun?
I swim, I read, and I also actually dance. I love to dance or watch people dance, so those are what I do for fun.
As a kid, what did you like to do to get in trouble? Because all these things.
I'm actually not a trouble kid.
At all?
No, I'm a very hobby person, so I don't have enough friends. I have to stay home and build my laptop or TV.
You never like wanted to just rebel and get in trouble?
If you tell my mom I'm in trouble, she won't believe you because I'm not a trouble kind of. My junior brother would, but me no. No.
Did you ever look at him and you're like, why'd you get in trouble? Why don't you just read a book?
No, he's adventurous, and I think the diversity at home also brought a beauty out because you all can be the same, and I appreciate him for his adventure. But I'm the cool kid actually.
Oh, okay, now let's talk about debate.
Okay.
Where did you get your interests from? Because it's not every day that you see young people engaging in actual, legit debate.
Interesting question. So in high school, St. Thomas Aquinas, I was a student leader and I was involved in debating, but it wasn't as serious as it became when I came to university. Interestingly, when I got to the university, the general expectation was that I would be contesting for SRC president. In fact, in level 100, I was interested.
Okay.
But at a point in level 200, I got a bit more introverted. I wanted to have a private space or do something new.
So you were an extrovert at some point?
It's a bit of a mixed personality. At some point, I'm an extrovert. At some point, I'm an introvert. Okay. So I accidentally got involved in debate, to be honest, and at that time I just saw an opportunity to reform. Debate was in the university already when I went there, but it wasn't that prominent or it wasn't that serious. So I accidentally became a president of 7 membership, and I started the reforms, and before I left we had over 150 students. We had constant funding. We have done so much, and I'm proud of the team I worked with. I'm proud of myself as well. So I became debate president by accident, and the journey have just been on end. And after school, I've kind of continued on to international level.
But what did you want to be as a kid? When someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I wanted to be a diplomat, and I still want to be a diplomat. Yeah, so that dream is still on.
What about it sparks your interest?
I think mediating different conflicts is something that weirdly interests me. So being in the midst of diverse opinion and being able to moderate to find a common ground is something that over the years I've grown to appreciate and commit myself to. And I'm not surprised I'm where I am because I think I've over the years gotten better at it.
So when you discovered that you actually like to debate, did you just see it as a hobby? At what point did you say, okay, I'm going to do this seriously and I'm going to take it seriously?
Honestly speaking, I just saw an opportunity to travel.
Really?
And I just grabbed it.
What do you mean? What are the travel opportunities in debating?
So, in the University of Ghana first participated in the Pan-African University Debate Championship in 2012. And this is after an organization called Debate Ghana, led by Hesse, who I would say we owe a lot to, introduced us to the BP debate in University of Ghana. It was a bit strange because the BP debate is not the debate you are used to. It's the British parliamentary style of debate where you are given a topic 15 minutes before time to debate and you don't use the internet. So you have to be a walking encyclopedia or you constantly be reading everything because whatever motion is thrown at you, you have no idea of it. So we did well and we placed second, myself and Edmond Combat, who became SRC president. Later on that year, we received a letter that we can represent Ghana in South Africa. I was like, okay.
Was it your first time out of Ghana?
No, that was my first, but that was my first time in South Africa, and that was the first time the university's debate team is traveling out.
Wow. And so everything is paid for?
We went to see the dean for sponsorship and negotiated to get a sports directory to sponsor that trip.
Nice.
So our first debate trip was in South Africa, and after that experience, I was like, I'm not going back.
Wow.
So that is the opportunity I saw, and that's what brought us here. So it was a bit selfish, but then I must say it's been true. It's inspired a lot of people to get this far.
Wow. Now, what goes into preparing for a debate?
Okay, so at the university level, I tell my students debating is a lifestyle. So even a conversation with you now is us debating or exchanging ideas. So you have to be debating your entire life, even with your partners, your mom.
How?
Asking questions and using your head. Because if someone tells you to do something, you go to ask the rationale behind it, or probably the principle or the value and why you should do it. And debate for me is about the whys. So any topic you are given, you first need to have an appreciation of the topic, and whatever role you are given, you need to answer those questions of why those things exist. And I think that's actually what the world is about. Whether you are debating, whether you're a banker, whether you're a journalist, it's about answering the question of why you do something. And so every day is a preparation day for us at the university, the level of debate, and constantly listening to the news, reading, and getting content is also another part of it.
So how many hours a day would you say you committed to understanding certain materials when you first started?
To be honest, 24/7.
24/7. You're just always.
Always. Anything I do, it's become a default to me. So anything I do, I am one way or the other acquiring the skills or sharpening the skills of engagement, critical thinking, practical reasoning, and developing the confidence in order to engage opponents.
But do you organize it in a way? Because I'm thinking of like great debaters where they're like, okay, we're gonna do something related to history, so we're all gonna read this, right? And then I think somewhere in the movie, the one guy read something that the rest of them didn't read. So do you organize it that way, or you just read anything?
So thankfully, under the auspices of the sports directory, debate is actually now more like a class. So we do, I do, and I'm taking that class because and I'm the first to do that again also, so I'm proud of that. So Mondays and Fridays from 8 to 10 we have debate class where students from the University of Ghana come, and we have actually a course structure. So in the first semester is introduction to the course, the history and everything to the students, and the second semester is actually content development. So within the 2 hours we have topics. We've done slavery last year, we did World War, so we did recession. We do open discussions on anything happening either in Asia, Africa, Latin America, Australia, New Zealand. So it's a structured program in University of Ghana now for 2 hours or 4 hours each week. So yes, we do that. But on an individual level, it's an everyday affair.
But did it help you with your core subjects, like actually framing your mind this way? Did it help at all with the rest of your
It did, particularly when you're writing your essays. And I love to write them. When I'm writing the essays, like I'm talking or debating, so it helps you with your analysis, it helps you with your structure. It's something we emphasize in debating, because for you to effectively communicate, you need to have a structured argument, you need to be able to have evidence, claim, and analysis. So all those things come to bear in my academic life. Yeah, I'm no more in academic, but it became very beneficial in academic life, whilst then also in my life now and my work.
Okay, so did you have any heroes as a kid that you looked up to, like in University of Ghana, and you're like, I want to be like this debater?
I think Patrick Stevenson, who is a Vimani, Chief Moment, who was a vice president. I didn't experience Bernard, but I think I heard about him. So yeah, it's a mixed up of personalities that you draw inspiration from.
What did you admire about them?
For Chief Moment, the way he plays around words. For Patrick, he's a bit he's very confident, and he's a likable character. For Bernard, yes, content. He's speaking, and you wonder, oh, this guy's read a lot. So if you appreciate debating, you know that this guy is full of content. So those pieces of style or traits that draws me to appreciate who they are.
Okay, and at what point did you decide I'm going to pursue this as a career? Because I mean, there are things people do in uni, and when they're done, they're like, okay, let me go get a job.
Frankly, it's still a hobby.
You don't see it as a career?
It is, but personally, so I'm a chief operating officer for a firm, so people only think I do debates. No,
because it's a part of you, but it's your identity, right? Identity. It's now like your identity. So you didn't leave it after you were done with school. You still continued.
Yes, and it's because of the passion I have, and genuinely I love interacting with the students. Genuinely I love seeing people debate, and I don't regret the sacrifice I've made for it. At the point I decided was the point I saw the opportunity, and I've always emphasized that. I saw the opportunity to travel. I went out, I tasted it, and since then I've been to several countries. And
how many countries have you been to exactly?
For debate?
Yeah.
It should be more than 15, yeah.
Wow. And what do you learn about just people when you go there, even when you went to South Africa? So now you're no longer with students in Ghana, you're with students from SA. What do you learn about the way they approach things and the likes?
Okay, so with students from the world, not SA.
Okay, you're just physically in SA.
No, I'm in Ghana now, but
no, I mean,
was in
when
SA.
you were in SA.
Yeah, I was in SA.
You were with
for the
students
World
all
Championship
over.
from all over.
So all over the world.
Yes.
So my focus is more on the way they approach things, right? Did you see anything different from what you were used to, or was it just the same?
It's not the same. And that's another beauty of the sports. You appreciate the world in its true self, that people appreciate things from different angles. Last year I was on Equity in Mexico, and Equity is the committee that oversees the safety or promotes the safety of all the debaters, about 2,000 of them. Being on that Equity board, you receive a lot of petitions and complaints that makes you wonder, okay, if it's in Ghana, will I have dealt differently? So the world is different and people appreciate things differently, and that's what debating has given us as Ghanaian debaters. It's exposing us to different cultures, exposing us to different appreciations of life, and exposing us to different way of seeing things. Particularly in South Africa, we had a genuine case of racism.
Really?
Which
in South Africa?
Yes, which became more like I had to negotiate for almost 8 hours. And it wasn't a nice thing for me as a council chair, because I had just been elected and I needed a bit of time to zoom in, but I just had to be in the middle of that crisis. So we don't have racism in Ghana, and people are not passionate about it like it is in South Africa. So it's one thing that I say, I told my students probably have an MA in diplomacy now, because black South Africans are overly passionate about race issues, and you got to also be a bit empathetic to the whites and listen to the two and see if you can have a meeting point. And yeah, so that makes you better, and I think that it gives us a better worldview.
Because you're able to look at things from a neutral.
Sure. Sometimes you get a bit of cultural shocks, but
what are some cultural shocks to you?
Racism, gender inclusion, appreciation of identities. In the world's debates, you just don't assume someone is a male or female. Different laws, so you really have to be very tolerant and very conscious of what you say, because people might interpret it differently.
Okay, so in all your engagements with the world and all the places that you've been, what would you say young people, right, should begin to see from debate? So for you, it was traveling, right? But all the other things that you've learned, why would any young person watching us now be interested? Why should they be interested in debating?
Okay, we look at our continent and we ask ourselves what the problem is. I've read a lot of articles that accuse leadership. I've also read articles that accuse followership. I think both share responsibility, because both have some responsibility to itself and to society. Followers are not asking the right questions, and leaders are also not taking followers serious, because the followers are not demanding from them what to do with them. And I think that is what debate brings to life.
What kinds of questions should followers be asking?
For example, a politician proposes a policy. You should ask very hard questions and interrogate whether the policy is sustainable, whether the policy is genuinely intended, and whether the policy is good in the long run and not just for today. If we start asking those questions, most of the policies we are running as a country will have second look at it, because they are short term and they are also in line with just a 4-year cycle of a particular government. We think that if we promote debate for it to become a way of life, the quality of life will also improve, because people ask the right questions and demand what is due them. For example, in your lectures, or you pay someone for a service, the person is not doing you a favor. The person is paying you for the rendering you the services you're paid for. So you need to demand it and demand quality for it, but we don't.
But that's more cultural, isn't it? If culturally we're supposed to obey our elders, and the person sees themselves as a place of authority because they're the one rendering service to you, then it's almost as though in their minds they're doing you a favor.
Culture is not static, and I do admit that most of these things are structural. The reason why we need to promote critical thinking and practical reasoning, which in turn moves to debate and build the confidence of people. If you take the child of Lincoln or GIS or TIS, where I happen to have run workshops for, those, and even Ashasi, where I used to coach, those students ask more questions, so it puts you, the lecturer, or the one engaging them, on your toes. Get to the government school and the students are either timid or they don't know, or they've been just told to take whatever you tell them. The two different worlds, you get more productivity from those that question the status quo, those that demand what is due them, than those that just take anything at all. And these things, I admit with you, is cultural, probably comes from the house. So parents probably should start engaging their kids and letting them speak up. And it's the way we can deal with gender inclusion, we can deal with sexual assaults and what have you, because when kids learn to speak out from home, they become more confident and they become more assertive and more productive in future, because people take them serious.
But isn't it also a bit problematic when you are in an environment that doesn't really encourage that, right? So I can understand that if we're in an ideal world where speaking up is encouraged, but you find yourself in a place where people are like, okay, just bow your head and do what you need to do to get by. So then you, the one that's speaking up, you almost end up like an outlier because you don't fit into the context, right? Shouldn't we also pay attention to the context?
I'm very conscious of that, but I don't think we need to just resign and say that that's it. It must change, and change starts from somewhere. So that's what probably we've started doing with debating, promoting critical thinking, promoting logical reasoning and practical reasoning as well. So yes, it's cultural, but I think that we can change. And
so how do we apply this to the home? Because then kids are coming to school, they can engage, they can debate, they can question things. And then you come home, and perhaps even your mom can't question things, right? And so you're torn in between the two of, okay, when I'm in school, I'm this character, but then when I come to my family, I'm a different character.
It will come at a cost, but we should do it. And I use myself as an example. At home, I'm always a different one. So my mom actually would always say, I'm in tree. Because whilst you're telling me something, I'm asking you questions. But she expects that you listen and just, she finished running the story. But at a point, I want to be clear of where you are. So it's something probably that we should encourage and promote, which is what the University of Ghana is doing. Other universities are also taking it up. And I believe when all of us come together to do it, when we become parents, to be able to change the generation coming forward. Yes, I admit it's cultural, it's structural, but it's something that we should do something about.
So encourage children to ask more questions and to speak up.
Exactly.
Okay, so ask you more questions around these two things, because it seems as though you're very passionate about it. But guys, if you have any questions for Edem, let me know. I can call you Edem, right? Let us know with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. The WhatsApp line is 0550-585-832. We will be right back.
Live music, interviews, poetry, and more with your favorite personalities. Be our guest on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for the most exciting moments on TV. Join Kojo Akoto Boateng for real entertainment right in your living room. Saturday live on City TV and City 97.3 FM.
Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on CCTV. Thank you so much for being with us. We are spending some quality time with Antonio Edem Asinyo, who's the president of the World Universities Debate Council. And he's the first black man to actually have that position. And we're so proud of him. And he's from Ghana, right? And we have the privilege of just having him here with us now. We were talking about critical thinking, asking questions, and speaking up, right? And I wanted to know where we start that from, because if you're in an environment where a child speaking up or someone speaking up seems as though they are questioning your authority and not that they are curious, then you tend to punish that as opposed to encouraging it, right? So for the teachers who are watching, the parents who are watching, the bosses who are watching us, who are always interpreting it wrongly, like there's one employee who's always asking, why do we have to do this? And then it comes across as, why are you trying to be the smart person in the room? Everybody else is doing it. You know, how do we create room to actually see where they're coming from, that they want to understand what they're doing before they do it? And how does that also help us create the quality human capital that we need for the country to develop?
Okay, so the status quo, my entry into the University of Ghana, I got introduced to the critical thinking and practical reasoning course. I think that it should rather be brought a bit down, either at the DHS level or probably even basic level. We should break it down and include it in academic curricula. I think it will help. Again, I think parents and churches should also be encouraging that, particularly with a lot of religious abuses and stuff like that. People are not questioning religion itself, which debate.
Should we question religion?
I think so. I think if your spiritual leader gives you some directives, you need to use your head sometimes. The reason why you read the news, some church followers are doing something you can't even imagine, but because of a God or a human God had asked them to do that, they have to do it.
But faith can be logical, right? Faith is believing in something that is unknown.
But it's also not madness. It's also not madness. So there must be
like that quote. It's also not madness.
There must be a middle ground. And I admit you really cannot logically engage on issues of faith, but in terms of the doctrine, because most of the things we do are doctrine. Reason why the Presbyterians, their practice or rituals are different from the Catholics. So these doctrines, I believe, have human and opinion understanding, and we need to question them. For example, the Catholic Church stands on abortion, Pentecost Church on women dressing and all those things. We need to engage ourselves and make, as an individual, make a decision for yourself using your own socialization and experience.
Okay, so I'm going to test your debating skills. Is that fine? I'm going to throw a random topic at you and I'll ask you to debate
it's not
it.
Political.
No, it's not political. So this morning, my co-host and I were talking about the year of the return. I don't know if you've been following it with people from the diaspora coming back home, and I was telling him how important it is for our identity as black people and the likes. I want you to debate why we shouldn't do it.
Why we shouldn't do it? Okay, so the confusion comes when in 2008 Barack Obama got elected as the first black American president, and the whole of Africa had huge expectations because of his color. Frankly, if you appreciate the fact that citizenship is tied to where you're coming from and your responsibility is tied to where you were born or where you decide to hold that citizenship to, you would appreciate that black Americans only have a moral obligation to us, but not a structural or legal obligation to us. Their first obligation is to where they are or who they are, which is Americans. So I don't expect a Ghanaian or a Nigerian to hold any allegiance to Ghana because he's black. I think that if you appreciate this, we would be able to live in an organized setting, knowing that you demand rightly from people. Largely, I also think that using Obama case study, we weren't fair to him. I've had a lot of interactions on the continent where we have said, a lot of my friends have said he failed, but I don't think so, because if you are measuring Obama because of his skin color and assuming that he owes allegiance to Kenya because his father was from Kenya, you will be wrong. As citizens, our first and primary focus is to where we identify with, which is America. You could have chosen to be president of Kenya if you wanted to, but he is not Kenyan. So we need to have that appreciation and come to that reality that our friends and family members in the diaspora, yes, it's unfortunate slavery happened, but we do have white South Africans. Those white South Africans are not Dutch or British. They are South Africans, and they need to be given that they need to have responsibility and obligation to South Africa. So based on responsibility and citizenship, I do not think that we should actively encourage them to come back. For coming back, it's obviously a global world, people can move around, but it is not an obligation, and I don't think that we should spend our money, which is even in deficit or lacking, in encouraging them to come back for nothing or just for the tourism of it.
Okay, I think I'm convinced.
Why do you think they should come back?
You want me to debate why they should come back?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I already gave the reasons.
But,
okay, so you want to test me? Okay, I'll tell you why
Okay.
they should come back. Because I think I'm going to debate it from their perspective, right? Or should I say, because you debated it from our perspective. Okay,
yeah.
so from our perspective, I think they should come back because we don't know a lot about ourselves as a continent. A lot of the knowledge that we need to know about our history, our past, is actually out of the continent. So they bring that perspective that we lack. So for example, when you see someone who is African American in Ghana, appreciating certain things that you've taken for granted, the fact that actually seeing black people all around you is radical. There are places in the world where you don't even see anyone black. Seeing a black doctor, a black lawyer, a black journalist, a black driver, it's actually something that will help us also appreciate that certain parts of the world, the freedoms that we enjoy here, we don't have just because of the skin, the color of our skin. Second thing we can appreciate from them is their resilience, right? So no matter where they are in the world, they try to succeed and they speak up. They don't just take anything just because. And our own inferiority complex, right? So they don't see anyone as beyond them, right? And someone treats them badly, they speak up. They don't say, because I find myself in this space, let me shrink and let me be quiet because this person has more than me. So I think if not for anything at all, the inferiority complex that we battle with as a people is something that they don't have. If anything, they are trying to amplify themselves. And when you read the work of Molefikete Asante, for example, all of it is dedicated to, encouraging the black person to see his greatness. And I think most times we try too hard to belittle ourselves in front of foreigners to make them comfortable, and we can learn that from them. How did I do?
Fair. That's fine. But they coming home is actually should be encouraged, but not actively encouraged. We should be focusing on more important stuff. We do have things here that
I actually wanted you to look at it from the perspective of tourism, because it's being led by you didn't want to talk about politics, so we don't want to do politics.
But frankly,
when
for
it comes
example,
from
let's take
it being a tourism, because I read this morning that someone said, "Oh, Beyonce and Jay-Z are going to come to Ghana, so hotels should now, do whatever they need to do, and SMEs should start doing what they need to do." And I'm like, okay, shouldn't we have been doing that before they get here?
Sure.
So it was quite.
I agree. But I think that we should focus on more important things and not be, because if you're going to spend money welcoming them here and they will end up going back and not settle, I don't think it's worth it. What we need to do probably is to, I don't know if you know the Black there's a museum in Washington.
Yes, Smithsonian. Is it Smithsonian or which one is it?
The one built by the Ghanaian Ajabet.
Oh no, the African American Museum.
Museum, yeah.
Yes.
You connect to it if you visit that place, and being there, I just feel like, okay, these people need to know their roots. Yeah. However, you need to also know that they are Americans, and they are not either Americans or wherever they are. They only hold more obligation to the continent and not something that we need to force them to do. And we shouldn't use our meager resources promoting that.
All right, let me come back to you.
Feel free.
How does it feel to be the president of the World Universities Debate Council? How did you feel?
You want the truth?
Yes, the truth.
Honestly, leaving Ghana to South Africa for the World Championship, my focus was just as a coach. And thankfully, University of Ghana won the Public Speaking Championship for the first time.
Wow.
As an African institution. So for 40 years in existence, we haven't won debate, we haven't won public speaking, but in Africa. And so this year was great year for University of Ghana and myself. So as a coach, I was proud. At the council meeting, when people were being nominated for executive positions, I felt a bit, can I do it, can I not? And again, Africa is underrepresented on that council. The only countries that have votes on that council is South Africa and Ghana. Zimbabwe, Kenya, Sudan, and all our observer nations on the council. So it's pretty much out there. So when China nominated me, I felt, okay, let's do this. You you get some looks from people like, what do you think you're doing? Like, particularly from your African brothers.
It's really?
Yes. So this was on the 29th, and the election was on the 1st of January. So we had to campaign. So my focus was on the Latin America, Asia, and African bloc. And I also tried penetrating the European Americas as well. And thankfully, I was contesting with someone from the UK who, she's quite good as well, and she's female, and she's a woman of color.
So she had all the benefits.
She had all the benefits. I remember some black people telling me that, this is a tough one, Antonio. She's a lady, and she's black.
She has all the,
she's from the UK.
Here's the thing that
and you are just a dreamer.
Oh,
but
that's crazy.
When I gave my speech and in my interaction with them, I honestly didn't plead for votes. I only would go to a delegate in the room and tell the delegate that my name is Antonio, I'm going for council president, and I would be happy if you support my bid. If you have anything at all you want to see council be, I wouldn't mind having a conversation with you, so I can include that in my agenda. So I really did not beg for the votes. I went plain on appealing to them that I'm willing to serve them and they should give me the opportunity to serve. So after the votes were declared, I had to test, which is 36 over 36, and she had 24. So it was an endorsement of my candidature, and I'm happy that for the first time I'm able to do that, and I'll be able to encourage the continent. When my name was mentioned, I think I was having my phone in that council meeting. I started shaking. I didn't know what to do because I was excited. I didn't think I would come this far, looking at where we came from. Accidental president, became national president, I won several debates, and now probably helping shape debate globally. So
what can we expect from you now that you're president?
More African, Latin American, Asia representation at the debate championship. It's a tournament of over 1,000 students, over 400 universities in 90 countries, and Africa is still largely underrepresented. There could be different reasons for that. It could be fans, it could be not knowing about it. Sadly, in Ghana, it's the only University of Ghana that have been able to participate for the past 4 years in Wales. No school again have been able to participate. So this year under my presidency, I hope that more Ghanaian universities will be able to make it to Thailand, which is where the next world is going to happen. Secondly, it's about dealing with structural racism. I believe policies guide the behavior of people, and I do not think that we should just put everybody together and brand them as one. Issues of racism can be isolated, named and shamed if you have instituted the right policies. So as council president, I'm going to pay particular attention to structural racism, where the structure is fair to all. So it's not overly given power or preference to particular race. Lastly, we're also going to increase the awareness of the sports globally to invite more corporate investments. And
what about gender inclusion?
I'm coming to that.
Hey.
I'm coming to that. So before you even get excited, we're already doing that.
Okay.
We've started implementing that progressively, and thankfully under my leadership, we are implementing it full time. So in Cape Town, it was 40-60. In Thailand, it's going to be 50-50. Oh. So institutions that are bringing more than 2 teams must have a 50% female representation, non-male representation, which is what the policy is going to is saying. So we are doing a lot, and the next is team codes. In the past, institutions are identified by their schools. So if you're Harvard, you enter a debate room and it's Harvard A, Harvard B, Somalia B, Somalia A. We've taken that off because we think it's kind of a bit, it gives the one from Harvard A or probably the University of Ghana A some bit of unfair advantage or biases when it comes to judging. So now teams are debating from the preliminary rounds anonymously with team codes, which we believe will be able to deal with the issues of biases.
Now finally, your advice to all young people who are watching you, from your experience where you've been, what advice would you give them, even if they are not interested in debating, the lessons you've learned? Because you didn't just succeed in South Africa. It wasn't just, let me just go forth and get a free flight. To SA, but actually succeed in this space. So what advice would you give us? I
think you have to persevere and be determined and have a plan. Also, you should be able to identify your passion and apply it in the only way you sell. It might not give you the monetary benefit immediately, but you get some satisfaction that is priceless. And at the long run, you end up getting money or reward for that, which is what is happening now. I also want to encourage that parents allow their kids or encourage their kids to speak up. Is the only way to get them to be more confident and more better citizens. Also, at the university level, I'll encourage more Ghanaian universities to embrace the sports. And I want to thank the Sports Directorate in the University of Ghana, and a special mention to the former Director of Sports, who was my mentor, and the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Ernest Aite, who actually started this whole dream. The current leadership have continued, and I'm very grateful for that as well.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you too.
so much, Antonio Edem Asinyo, who is the president of the World University Debate Council, World Universities Debate Council. I think you should come back and have my co-host and I debate each other and see who would win. I think I'll score more points than him. Wilbur Forrest, are you inspired?
Well, good luck. Good luck trying to debate a lawyer. We'll say everything about almost anything. And that's exactly how it is. Now, it's still Breakfast Daily right here on City TV. And I'd like to remind our viewers that you can keep your messages coming through with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. And, of course, the WhatsApp line, 0550 585 832. So now there's an interesting